Man, I haven't played TF2 in ages. I wonder what's changed since I last played. Shit. Okay, I'ma be completely honest, I don't know what the hell happened to the title screen. Where's the play button? Oh yeah, I actually have a bunch of items. Aw man, my favorite scattergun. Oh, and my edgy sniper loadout. Damn man, that's such a unique loadout. Let's see what we got over here. Holy crap. I almost forgot about this beauty. My first and only unusual unbox. These unusual taunts are super rare. I bet I could get over 100 keys for it. If I sell this for 100, that's over 200 bucks? Holy shit, I gotta sell this. It's probably even rarer and more valuable now than it was 3 years ago. Hey guys, selling an unusual 72 high 5, looking for 100 keys pure or 150 in unusual overpay. Thanks. Hey guys, just selling an unusual 72 high 5, looking for 100...
Shut the hell up, man.
Yeah, come on, dude. Nobody wants their unusual. Taunts are garbage.
I'll offer my 8-key unusual for it.
No, what the heck? I'm not gonna sell it for 8 keys. And anyway, why are you guys being so rude?
Oh, you moron, just check backpack.tf.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's sellers at like 10 keys or something.
Do you still want my 8-key unusual?
No, I'm not gonna do that. Ugh, let's see. What the hell? You're right. I've lost a fortune. How the hell did this happen? If you're like me, you probably think that's a pretty good question. After all, if you've been trading at all in the last 6 months, you probably noticed big changes to unusual taunts. Once being some of the rarest and most desirable items in the entire economy, unusual taunts have recently dropped massively in price and desirability to the point where they are near worthless and stigmatized by pretty much everyone in the entire trading community. But again, how did this happen? What caused this massive economical shift? And maybe more importantly, is this shift a good thing for TF2 in general? Or does it move the economy one step closer to ruin? Let's find out. Unusual taunts first debuted in TF2's Love and War update, which released all the way back in June 2014, exactly 4 years ago. While it might be hard for newer traders to imagine, the economy was far different and arguably a lot simpler back in 2014. Buds were still the high-tier currency of choice, cases, tiered items, and skins wouldn't be introduced for another year, and there was only one type of unusual in existence, the unusual hat. However, that last part was bound to change indefinitely when the Love and War update introduced unusual taunts. And boy, there was a lot of hype behind unusual taunts. As a wholly new item type, taunts were a brand new concept to TF2, and the fact that you can pull them with huge, flashy, unusual effects was just absolutely mind-boggling to many players at the time. As new unusual taunts started to slowly surface on Outpost, many received incredibly high offers and were subsequently sold and then priced on backpack.tf for very high amounts. This trend continued through 2014's Halloween update, as Valve added 2 new Halloween-themed taunt effects, Haunted Phantasm and Ghastly Ghosts, that turned out to be incredibly desirable. As time passed since the original update, more and more taunts got unboxed, and many people expected the prices to fall as people stopped selling into the hype, just as they did for other new items. However, the hype never really died down on unusual taunts. Because taunts were so flashy and unique, a year later tons of people still wanted to buy taunts to keep. However, because these taunts could only be unboxed out of 2 scarce crates released in the Love and War update, a year down the pike there ended up being a very small amount of taunts in existence, and there wasn't enough supply to satisfy the demand. Thus, in order to get the taunts that they wanted, many people were forced to either pay pure keys or overpay massively, driving taunt prices up even more. Moreover, many traders at the time realized this trend and took advantage of it, aggressively buying unusual taunts and marking them up, as they knew that there would always be someone out there who was willing to pay more than backpack.tf price. By mid-2016, unusual taunts were essentially hybrids between Australiums and unusuals, since the only way to get one was to either buy it with pure keys or insane unusual overpay, just like you would do to buy an Australium item or a golden frying pan. Since taunt prices were increasingly being marked up higher and higher and higher, I think a true economist would have predicted a price bubble. However, I don't think they would have predicted what happened next. If mid-2016 was when unusual taunts reached their all-time high, late 2016 was when they fell abruptly from grace. Specifically, this fall occurred as a direct consequence of the way Valve handled Scream Fortress 8. You see, Halloween 2016 turned out to be an absolutely insane update for unusual taunts for 3 key reasons. Number 1. Valve added new unusual taunt effects for the first time since 2014. Number 2. Valve introduced Taunt Unusualifiers to the new case, the Creepy Crawly case, which essentially allowed unusual taunts to be unboxable to the mainstream once again. And number 3, Valve doubled the unusual unbox rate for the duration of the Halloween event. Putting this all together, you can guess what happened next. The total number of unusual taunts skyrocketed. And it wasn't just taunts with new effects either. Once the Halloween event ended in mid-November, Taunt Unusualifiers started dropping first-generation taunt effects, allowing the very same taunts first released in the Love and War update to hit the market once again, but this time in the masses. Upon unboxing a new unusual taunt, most people expected to easily sell their new unusual for their expensive backpack.tf prices. However, after the initial hype died down, people started to notice a problem. Nobody was interested in their items. Turns out, unusual taunts were expensive primarily because of their low supply, not because of their high demand. When unusual taunts suddenly became common post-Halloween 2016, there just wasn't enough demand anymore to keep up with the huge new influx of new unusuals. And unfortunately, this suddenly made unusual taunts a hard sell. It took a long time for people to wrap their minds around the concept of taunts selling poorly. Some people were just plain confused, and others were in denial for a very long time, never willing to adjust their prices to be competitive in the slightest. But when people finally started to come around, many freaked out. They realized that the backpack.tf price on their taunt was actually very outdated, and solely reflected a time when taunts were nowhere near as common as they were now. Thus, many sellers started to try and sell their taunts as fast as they could, hedging their bets against a large price drop. They entered relentless undercutting wars on the classifieds, grinded trade servers, and offered to overpay massively on other unusuals just to get their taunts out of their backpack. Unfortunately, these tactics rarely worked. Because there are only a small number of taunts and unusual taunt effects, the market on each unique taunt got flooded rapidly, and it became very common to see 5 or more people trying to ruthlessly sell the exact same taunt at the exact same time, all with little to no success. All of this combined quickly earned taunts a very negative stigma in the trading community. After all, if people were trying and failing to sell taunts so badly, wasn't there something inherently wrong with them? And if the next guy didn't want them, why should I trade for them? Suddenly, the entire community was labeling taunts as garbage or cancer, and literally everyone started avoiding them like the plague. Trading with taunts had somehow become one of the hardest and most frustrating things you could do in TF2 trading. At the end of the day, I think people at this time still held out hope that taunts would someday recover. After all, Taunt Unusualifiers seemed like a one-time thing, and once backpack.tf started getting around to updating prices and people started pulling unusuals off the market to keep, unusual taunts had tremendous upside. Aside from a couple of effects like Midnight Whirlwind or Silver Cyclone, unusual taunts still looked fantastic and had the potential to become rare and desirable once again. But oh boy, these people were dead wrong. Sometimes I wonder if Valve knows the secondary market exists, because after the trading nightmare of near unsellable unusual taunts flooding the market and causing endless amounts of confusion, grief, and frustration to the TF2 economy, Valve decided to double down on Taunt Unusualifiers and add them to every single case in the Jungle Inferno update. Right? Could Valve have been any nicer to us traders? Anyway, whoever thought taunts weren't coming back was just plain wrong. Just like the year previously, new unusual taunts once again started to flood the market. When Halloween 2017 arrived a few days later, Valve let Unusualifiers drop the 2 rarest and most expensive unusual effects from Halloween 2014, encouraging unboxing even more and leaving no taunt to be spared. Just like before, there was an initial hype period where it was possible to sell new unusual taunts. However, a couple of months later, if taunts weren't impossible to sell prior to the Jungle Inferno update, they'd become literally untouchable by anyone in the TF2 trading community. By this time, people had started to accept defeat. They realized that there was no possible way taunts could recover after not one, but two market dumps of brand new unusual taunts. There wasn't the demand to keep up with the first dump, so there definitely wasn't the demand for the second. Taunt prices were going to go down the drain, that much was certain. Prior to Jungle Inferno, taunts didn't really get reduced in price on backpack.tf. In part due to price memory of people thinking taunts should be expensive, and in part due to backpack.tf price suggesters literally not knowing what the hell was going on, most taunts were only allowed to receive conservative drops after the Halloween 2016 update. However, after Jungle Inferno, backpack.tf changed its pricing philosophy regarding unusual taunts. From then on out, they would allow price suggesters to drop unusual taunts by whatever amount was supported by sales. Conservative price drops were a thing of the past. In other words, shit was getting real. And with that, unusual taunts started dropping like flies. A taunt was once worth 50 keys, now it's 10. 100 keys? Say hello to 25. 250 keys? 50 keys sounds about fair. As the months went on, unusual taunts slowly became the cheapest unusuals on the market, and anyone holding them lost hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. Nowadays, it is cheaper to buy a taunt as your first unusual than a hat, as many taunts have dropped below 8 keys, the long-time price floor for unusuals. It's also possible to fill out an entire loadout full of taunts for the same price as a 100 key Burning Flames hat, which I think is just absolutely crazy. Moreover, if you remember my Halloween video I made about a year and a half ago, you might remember that I hype sold a brand new unusual taunt to a collector for 300 keys pure. And guess how much that taunt is worth now? Yeah, 11 keys. As taunts have gotten cheaper and cheaper, you might also expect them to suddenly start selling better simply due to their low cost. Unfortunately, this is not really the case. Despite unusual taunts being some of the cheapest unusuals out there, taunts still sell poorly and are more stigmatized than they've ever been before. It seems like no price can justify trading for a disgraced unusual. So there you have it. That is the journey of how unusual taunts have gone from being some of the best unusuals on the market to being some of the worst. But in hindsight, was this a good thing? I'd argue yes and no. Prior to Halloween 2016, unusual taunts were expensive, and the vast majority of people that wanted to buy them couldn't buy them. The fact that unusual taunts, especially some of the best ones, are now available to the masses is a pretty awesome achievement. It means that any predominantly casual player that wants to own unusuals has to spend far less money as an investment, and anyone looking to get into unusual trading can do so with well under 10 keys. Another positive many people might miss is that with all cases now dropping UNUSUALIFIERS, unboxing is less all or nothing and probably more profitable on the whole than it was previously. Because you have a chance of getting a regular unusual hat and an unusual taunt, the chance to get any unusual is higher, and although unusual taunts aren't super expensive, getting a 10 key taunt can easily save a bad unboxing session. That being said, I'm not entirely sure the end result was worth the process. For the last 2 years, us traders have had to bear the burden of what seemed like a Taunt Apocalypse. High-tier collectors and unusual traders alike have lost massive amounts of money, and almost everyone has had to deal with market floods, aggressive undercutters, and stigma against what has become a very common item in unusual trading. Thus, at the end of the day, I think Valve messed up. I wasn't kidding when I said I sometimes wonder if Valve knows the secondary market exists. Because if Valve had took even a gander at backpack.tf taunt values and then estimated just how many taunts would be released into the wild with UNUSUALIFIERS and the double drop rate, it seems they had to know it would be unsustainable. And even if they hadn't realized their mistake until after Halloween 2016, I just find it absolutely mind-boggling that they didn't notice the absolute train wreck that occurred the first time and realize that they probably shouldn't add more fuel to the fire, pun intended, with the Jungle Inferno update. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not opposed to the concept of Valve re-releasing unusual taunts, nor do I have some irrational belief that Valve shouldn't be allowed to make money. Obviously, taunt UNUSUALIFIERS were very profitable, but I think that they could have been done without disrupting the entire economy. For example, they could have added taunts during an event without a double unbox rate, or they could have made unusualifiers drop at a rate far lower than that of the normal unbox rate during the Jungle Inferno patch. Of course, this would only make taunts marginally cheaper, and probably wouldn't make Valve as much money as they made from the way they mass released taunt unusualifiers, but it would completely avoid the taunt crash we saw within the last year. And because I think the process of taunts falling in price was way worse than the benefits of cheap taunts, I think that this is the best case scenario. Now, because Valve is a business, I understand if they wouldn't want to implement these other options solely for financial reasons. That being said, I still think that there's the possibility of Valve making as much money as they did with unusualifiers without crashing the market, simply by mass releasing other unusuals besides taunts. I mean, just looking at the price of current unusuals, I think Valve could add a series of second or third gen single class unusuals to mass release in the place of taunt unusualifiers without much harm being done. Because there is still a high unbox rate in this scenario, people would still unbox like crazy, making Valve a crapload of money. But because these unusuals were cheap to begin with, prices wouldn't fall all that much, preventing the huge market instability that plagued taunts. Additionally, I doubt much stigma would arise against these newly released unusuals, simply because these new hats wouldn't be as easy to categorize as taunts, making it harder for people to just slap a label such as "all taunts are garbage" right on top of them. And thus, at the end of the day, these unusuals would be straightforward to offer with, even if the natural demand for them ends up being pretty low. It seems like it could be a win-win for everyone. So I think that that's the magical solution if Valve wants to mass release certain unusuals in the foreseeable future. However, I'm not really convinced that this is anything that the economy needs anytime soon. After all, we are still in recovery mode from taunts, and will likely be in this mode for another year or so. For the time being, I just hope Valve pays more attention to the economy before adding another set of items bound to wreak havoc on TF2 traders. I mean, I've literally had to make videos hating on the all-class crate, skins, and now taunt unusualifiers simply because Valve hasn't taken the time to implement these items properly. For the life of me and every other trader out there, I wish Valve the best of luck that their next big idea doesn't backfire like the last few. Thanks for watching.